Today's video, I'm going to be sharing my top 5 favorite books that I believe will change your life.
There's an extra bit of faith in my amazing grace. Never take my kindness for weakness. I'm phenomenal at offense and immaculate at defense. All I need is a reason. Rails applying pressure. I'm surprised that y'all still breathing. I'm changing with the seasons.
Gotta show off my merch real quick. Rocking that TF. What he talking about? Hoodie right here. You guys go ahead and check out the website in the description. Now, before I give you guys my top 5 favorite books that I believe will change your life, I have to first bring you back a little bit into how I got into reading and everything, because I was not always into reading. Let me first say that. I think what really messed me up was that in school, you had to read these old, literature novels, William Shakespeare, Romeo, Juliet, all these Greek mythology books. I think that really, stirred me away from reading, as a kid. And the reason why I say that is because I grew up in poverty, so there wasn't much reading going on in my environment. There wasn't a lot of knowledge being passed down in my environment. On the simple fact of that, I thought all books were like Romeo and Juliet and Shakespeare plays and things like that. I didn't know that there was different, genres. Obviously, I knew about fiction and nonfiction, like autobiographies and things like that, but I didn't know about like self-help books and all these different crazy books that I've read over the past few years. A lot of you guys probably gonna laugh or whatever, but I did read a few Junie B. Jones books. If you guys remember Junie B. Jones, go ahead and give a thumb up on this video and comment down below. It wasn't until I read this other book by Dave Plesser called A Child Called It. If you haven't read the book, A Child Called It, it's a very, very emotional book. This book pretty much, I'm not gonna get into detail because it's not like what we came here for, but the book really opened my eyes to a lot. And I read that book maybe in 2 days when I was a teenager. So that really caught me on or whatever. So I always thought that books were just, I didn't understand why people read books. I always saw people walk around with Harry Potter books and I always thought it was corny. You know what I mean? That, I can be honest, I always thought reading was corny. I didn't know anything of it. I'm like, man, these people reading Romeo and Juliet plays all day. Like, that was my mindset, and I was young. I, didn't have much knowledge or wisdom. So, it's understandable. About 2 years ago is when my life just completely changed. And I read 22 books in 1 year. Now, this is from someone that didn't used to read. Someone that thought reading was corny, only read a few books here and there throughout his life. I read 22 books in 1 year. Shout out to my boy Aaron, man. My boy Aaron D. He recommended this book to me called Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Carolina Leaf. And that book, it's not on my top 5. It's in my top 10 because it's one of the books that started me on the journey. But pretty much this book, it was a quote in there that stuck out to me. And the quote that stuck to me was, if you realized how powerful your thoughts are, you would never think another negative thought. And that stuck to me completely. I was like, wow, my mind was blown away because now I'm getting outside knowledge that I never had before, and that started my journey of reading. Just that book alone, that quote stuck with me and I was like, man, I gotta read. After giving you guys a backstory, I'm about to give you guys my top 5 favorite books that I believe will change your life. This isn't in any particular order from 5 to 1, but I will give you my favorite book out of these 5. One of the books that I highly recommend, a lot of you guys have probably heard of this book. This book right here is called The Alchemist, and it is by Paulo Coelho. I believe that's how you say it. Alchemist is a fantastic book, man. I remember the day that I got this book. Now, what I usually do is I'll skim through the book and whatever page I land on, I'll read a little bit from it. So in this book, The Alchemist, there's this kid named Santiago. Now, Santiago's father has saved up so much money for him. He wanted him to become a priest, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He wanted him to become a priest. And, that was the thing to do because that was the only way that you can make a lot of money in his village. Now, Santiago, he kind of disagreed with his father. He said, hey, that's cool, Dad. I love that you did this for me, but I want to see the world. I want to travel the world, and his dad said, okay, if that's what you want to do, fine, you can do that. But the only way that you can do that is if you become a shepherd. Now, what a shepherd is, they pretty much herd sheep. They go from village to village, shearing sheep, selling their wool, things like that, right? And Santiago wanted to do that. So He was like, okay, cool. One of the things that stuck out to me, he was sleeping in a church that had a big old hole in the ceiling. He said that I need to start buying bigger books because they make better pillows. That was like the first line that I read, and I was like, oh, hold on, that's deep. Like, that's really, really deep. If you're having trouble finding your purpose or following your intuition, or if you feel like, you know, you want to follow your heart, follow your dreams, great story right here. I highly, highly, highly recommend. A lot of celebrities, you know, successful people have read this book over and over again, and it's definitely an amazing book. I don't want to give you guys too much because I want you to read the book and soak in some knowledge and wisdom that I've learned from this book. But I highly recommend The Alchemist. Coming in at number 4, this book right here. This book is called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Don Miguel Ruiz, he talks about the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. So pretty much what an agreement is, if someone says that you are a terrible singer and you believe that person, you are now making an agreement with that person that you are a terrible singer. If you understand these 4 agreements that have changed your life, and which they completely changed my life, I was just so much more aware of how people talk to me and how I responded to how they talk to me. If you agree with them, you're essentially like letting their opinion control your life. And he gets into detail with all 4 of those agreements and how they change your life. This is a very, very easy read. Very quick read. I finished this book in a few hours. Let's see how many pages. It's not that many pages. 138 pages, guys. So you can read this book in a day. But then if you can't read it in a day, that's okay. Not everyone is a fast reader. Take your time, soak in the knowledge. I was just really, really into the book. So that's why, you know, I was able to finish it so soon, because once I was locked in, it was just like, I started on page 1. I looked up, I was on page like 130, and I was like, wow, like this is crazy. Highly, highly recommend The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. This book right here, it is called The Noticer by Andy Andrews. Now, Andy Andrews, my favorite author. Fun fact, Andy Andrews actually followed me on Instagram. He followed me back on Instagram a few weeks ago. This book right here completely changed my perspective. Sometimes all a person needs is a little perspective. Andy Andrews uses this character named Jones. And Jones is like an older guy who is perceived as like an angel, pretty much. He knows everyone around the town. He has all the wisdom, all the knowledge in the world, and he gives you perspective. Just to give you an example, Jones often finds like couples that are having troubles. He helps them out by giving them both perspective. But one that stood out to me the most was, there's a couple, the woman, she loves horses. She's been riding horses since she was a kid. She's absolutely obsessed with horses. Her husband is actually afraid of horses. He's terrified about horses. He had like a traumatic event happen when he was a kid. He doesn't like horses, but he loves sports. But his wife absolutely hates sports. She doesn't like sports. Sometimes we try to change a person, like as in his wife trying to change him to love horses and him trying to change his wife to love sports. Then he says, you know, one day the guy may go to a bar, you know, get a drink to watch the game. And the waitress comes up to him and talks about the score, talks about, you know, the game and her favorite team and things like that. He's attractive to that because that's what he loves. And his wife never talks to him about it because she doesn't like it. And on the contrary of that, the flip side, wife goes to work and she goes into one of her boss's office and she sees he has a horse picture on his wall, a horse painting on the wall. And now she's like, wow, you love horses? And then they have a connection. So I guess the whole point of that particular situation is that you can't force people to change, and there's always going to be someone out there that has the same type of hobbies and they enjoy the same things you do. And this book gives a lot of different perspectives on different situations. It's a great book and it's easy to read. It's not just always going to be about relationships, but it's also going to be self things as well. So like you're learning more about yourself and you're just learning perspective in general. Highly recommend Andy Andrews, The Noticer. The next book is The Shack by Paul Young. W.M. Paul Young. Now The Shack. Oh man, The Shack. The Shack is an amazing book. I absolutely love it. They actually have a movie on The Shack, but I highly recommend that you watch the book, or I said you should watch the book. I highly recommend that you read the book before you watch the movie, and I'm gonna tell you why after I tell you what the book is about. There's this guy, his name is Mackenzie. He has kids and he has a wife. I'm not gonna tell you guys exactly as I want you to read the book, but something traumatic happens in this story. and Mackenzie ended up meeting God. And it's really, really a test of your faith, because oftentimes in life, I think this book resonated with me well, because oftentimes in life, we go through so many things, so many hardships, we go through so many downfalls, and we don't understand why. We're like, why me? Why does this happen to me? Why, God, why? You know what I'm saying? And this right here gives you a different perspective on God's point of view, pretty much. You know, and it's an amazing book. I don't want to tell you guys too much, man, because this book is amazing. I read this book in one day. Like I said, I'm a fast reader, but when you have a book that is very, very, you know, good, and you're very into it, absolutely amazing. This book changed my life. As you guys see, the cover is a little damaged, but that's okay. Once you finish this book, I highly recommend you watch the movie. And this is the reason why a lot of people say the books are better than the movies. The reason why books are better than the movies is because when you're reading a book, you kind of paint your own image of characters. You kind of, like, for example, let's use Mackenzie for an example. If I read this book and you read this book, we may have two different, you know, pictures of what Mackenzie may look like in our head, right? So I can picture Mackenzie with brown hair, you know, brown eyes. You can picture Mackenzie, blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever. But then when the movie comes out, it's like neither one of our perspectives. He has, you know, black hair and brown eyes, or black hair and green eyes, whatever. So then that's why a lot of people say that the book is always better than the movie, because you kind of paint your own reality of the characters. I highly recommend that you guys read The Shack by W.M. Paul Young. Last but not least, and also my favorite book of all time so far, this book definitely changed my life, man. I'll be honest with you, man. I cried a little bit at the end of this book. It gave me goosebumps to this day. To this day! To this day! I felt so much of a connection with this book. You know, this book right here, like, really, really spoke to me, spoke volume to me. This book is called The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. Once again, this is another book by Andy Andrews, The Traveler's Gift. So pretty much this story, there's this guy, his name is David. And David is going through a very, 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 very rough time in life. In the beginning of the story, he's in a lot of financial trouble. All his credit cards are maxed out. Everything is going wrong for David. And he gets a phone call from his wife. And his wife is like, hey, you know, our daughter is sick. She needs to get her tonsils removed, but we don't have any money to pay for it. And while this is going on, David is at work, and his boss is telling him, hey, David, off the phone, man, off the phone. You gotta get off the phone, get back to work. But he's like concerned, you know, about his daughter. He's telling his wife, hey, look, use a credit card, we'll do it. The credit cards are maxed out. Like, she's stressing, she's crying, she's complaining, like, she's super stressed out. And David is now stressed out because, like, man, like, you know, I'm not there for my daughter. Like, I can't, you know, be there for my family. You know, in his mind, this is what he's thinking. He's like, man, what options do we have? So his boss keeps telling him, hey, get off the phone, get off the phone. Eventually, his boss is like, you know what, go home, you're fired. So while David is at the downfall of his life, the worst time in his life, he gets fired for being on the phone talking to his wife about his sick child. And on his way home, all these emotions are running through his head. You know, he's like, man, my family probably be better off if I was dead than alive. You know, my life is going terrible right now. You know, if I die, they can use my, you know, life insurance money to you know, take care of everything they need. So he crashes his car. He goes into a coma. Now, while he's in this coma, he goes back in time. That's why it's called The Traveler's Gift. He meets 7 different historic people. I ain't gonna tell you all the people, but he meets like Harry Truman, Anne Frank, Abraham Lincoln. All these people are giving him different principles to take back when he gets out of his coma, bro. And when I tell you the last person that he meets, I'm not gonna even tell you, man. But when he met the last person in his book, I got goosebumps all throughout my body. Look, my eyes are watering right now, bro. My eyes are watering because it's real, bro. Like, this book, very end, yo, he meets somebody. I teared up. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. Like, crazy, crazy, crazy book. When you go through certain things in life, you may not understand why they're happening. And as long as you keep pushing and keep being positive and doing your best, you know, you can overcome a lot of things. Read all these books. All 5 of these books I'll put in the description so you guys can check it out. Now, there's also other books. Like I said, I read 22 books in that one year. These are just like my favorite 5 that I read. There's other books that I can show you guys right now that are like amazing books. That doesn't mean that they're not as good as these books. There's other books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. you know, that gives you financial literacy and understanding finances. And there's a book like the Richest Man in Babylon that teaches you about saving your money, having your money work for you. There's plenty of other books that are amazing books that definitely give you so much knowledge and wisdom. But as far as changing my life, those top 5 books are the ones that changed my life. And I hope that you guys can learn from these books as well. And I hope it can change your life, you know. And if you're not really a big reader like that, you can definitely check and see if there's audio versions of these. There's nothing wrong with audio version books. You know, some people, I know that you guys don't like to flip through pages and read and things like that. So maybe listening to it. Reading is so important. I definitely feel like it helped me, you know, become a better person. It definitely helped me just stay positive and motivated. When you read these self-help books and you understand that a lot of these people that are successful, it wasn't easy. A lot of people, it didn't happen overnight. They just stayed positive, they believed in themselves, and they kept moving forward. And I realized that once I stopped reading, I started getting, you know, mental health issues and just like really feeling down all the time. But once I started reading again, everything was lifted up, all my spirits were lifted up. There was this book that I read by Charlemagne the God from The Breakfast Club. He's a radio host. And he actually put out 2 books that I read, both of his books. One of his books, he mentioned that we go to the gym, you know, 4 or 5 days a week to exercise our body, but we don't read books or go to therapy to exercise our mind. And that really stuck to me. And I was like, that's the truest statement like I've ever heard, you know. Everybody continue to grow. If you're new here to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. Comment down below your favorite books, your top 5 favorite books. And we can all just grow together as a community, as a Frye family, as people in general, man. Let's make 2020 a great year. Let's keep pushing, improving, and doing the best that we can, man. I'm out of here, man.
Friday nights at the run and shoot. All the boys I played with left the game just to run and shoot. Treat my life just like pirates, all I want's to loot. I just want my parents living comfortable. Everything you want, they say it's up to you.